I hear a lot of people who didn't have a particularly religious upbringing or had a pretty liberal one be completely confused by people who use religion to justify bigotry and still claim that God is loving, or shocked when they find out that there were people who actually believe the Earth is 6,000 years old and a global flood killed all life on Earth except a 600-year-old man, his family, and 2 of every animal. And I'll sometimes hear a caller on a show like Talk Heathen and be mortified that I used that same exact reasoning once upon a time.
Okay, I'll be happy to go over that.
Okay, good.
Great. But back to what you said about it doesn't matter what you say. It does matter what you say because I'm just talking about you guys from, like, I think I listened to, like, maybe 15 minutes of a show. But what you guys are doing is you all are actually turning people against Jesus, well, God, and by having shows like this. And, I mean, I don't come to your house and try to convince you to be a Christian. And, okay, so this is what I would do. I don't believe in...
Okay, hold on, Ruth Ann. Hold on.
So
you found our YouTube channel where people call in to us to talk to us, and you're comparing that to us going into your home and forcing a conversation on you. Is that right?
Well...
Because that really doesn't add up, does it?
Well, not exactly, because...
Not even close.
Well, you're a danger to the youth because they have access to YouTube. And it really bothers me that, you know, one day my nieces and nephews, I don't have kids, but, you know, my nieces and nephews can come across this and start believing this stuff.
But also saddened because of how clearly indoctrinated they are.
Okay. Let's say you went to a country, right, and they were kind of like, didn't have a lot of education. And so if they don't read the Bible, they don't understand what the things that God said. And so if you look at the Ten Commandments, like, you know...
Let's go through the Ten Commandments. What's the first commandment?
Which ones?
I am the Lord thy God, right? Okay. Show me where I need to be moral in I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Where is the moral judgment? Let's go to the second one, right?
Not believing in God is immoral.
How? Let's go to the next one. Thou shalt not worship false idols.
That's immoral.
How? I mean, we can go through them, right? What's the next one?
Well, it depends on which version you're...
Yeah, I mean, we can, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not have lust in your heart. What does that have to do with the way you behave towards other people? I don't care if you look at somebody.
Yeah, I definitely know what that's like. As I deconstruct what I was taught by the Church of Christ since childhood, I'm seeing how bad my reasoning was for, well, most things. So many sermons were built on premises you could only accept if you already had some form of belief in Christianity, or on their ability to make their listeners feel bad enough about themselves that they desperately want a solution to feel better again. And neither are particularly good reasons that anything they're telling you is true. It wasn't until I gave myself permission to start doubting some of that reasoning that I realized how bad it was. Why do I grant things like God being all loving? When he was also the one saying I'm worthy of death.
I was so lost, I should have died, but you have brought me to your side.
Why do I grant that any argument for the existence of a creator God necessarily points to the version of the Christian God I grew up with?
Do you know what's interesting to me? What's interesting to me that not only does the Bible give you the perfect cause for life on this earth, in the beginning God, but in that first chapter of Genesis, On day 3, when God made the flowers, the grass, and the trees, He said, be fruitful and multiply after your own kind. And on day 5, when He made the birds and the fish, He said, be fruitful and multiply after your own kind. And on day 6, when He made the land animals and humans, be fruitful and multiply after your own kind. According to evolution, somewhere in the distant past, spontaneous generation had to occur, and that organism that originally spontaneously generated had to, over multiplied millions of years, turn into many different organisms not of its kind. But according to biblical creation, God laid down the law of biogenesis at the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 ideas as to the origin of this universe. In the beginning was matter, which we know is scientifically untenable. The only logical, reasonable, honest answer to the origin of this universe and the origin of life in this universe is the simple statement made over 3,500 years ago. In the beginning, God.
In fact, why do we even grant that God is the good guy of the Bible?
Wait, God's plan might be this, that we unlock His healing power through our obedient, fervent prayer. That's God's will, right? This brings to light an even more alarming scenario. God has the cure for cancer. However, He holds the solution hostage until He feels the adequate number of petitions have been offered up. He knows it, He owns it, He has the power to use it. Yet He is content to keep His healing hands withdrawn until the desired number of petitions are presented at His feet. Cancer in babies is terrible. But you know what? More terrible is you not sitting at my feet and begging.
Questions like that would have been unthinkable for me to ask just a couple years ago. And for a while I wondered if I was just naturally more gullible because it took me so long to start asking those pretty basic questions. But then I realized how primed I was for this line of reasoning. From baby Bible class I was told what book to defend and get my information from.
B-I-B-L-E, yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God, the B-I-B-L-E.
And that it was true a person who lived 2,000 years ago loved me because it said so in the same book.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so.
Because, as we know, the truest kind of love is the kind you need a book to remind yourself of, right? This is all being taught to me before I'm even out of diapers, mind you. After making it clear where you are supposed to get your information from, they have to scare you about the places you aren't supposed to get it from.
Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. For the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little ears, what you hear.
You have to actively avoid things that might challenge what the book says because God is always watching. And you wouldn't want to have doubts about the book while He's watching, do you? They taught that thoughts themselves could be sins, and as such, they aren't really your own while you're in the church. They aren't methods of finding out truths or learning more about the world or yourself. There's something to be potentially afraid of having if they aren't in line with that B-I-B-L-E. I believe that thoughts, especially doubting God, could make me a bad person. Now, I see that doubts can even be a good thing by helping you to reevaluate exactly why you believe something and lead to discovering parts of the world you were afraid of even considering you could be a part of. And if the book was all true, why shouldn't it hold up to some basic questioning? On one hand, I'm a little envious of people who never had this level of self-policing of their own thoughts and thus seem so much more developed in their own beliefs and identity compared to me. But on the other hand, I'm also enjoying the adventure of learning things the right way for the very first time. Seeing the vast variety of human experiences past me would have written off as sin. Learning about the inner workings of the world without just having to say God did it or this is a result of a fallen world. Processing my thoughts and emotions without having to be afraid of hurting the creator of the universe with them. And I'm glad I can have empathy for fellow victims of indoctrination and bad reasoning and not just write them off as being bigoted for the sake of being bigoted. There are days where I miss having a book or a preacher to tell me what to think instead of having to actually figure out what I believe and invite the possibility of me being wrong in the end. But ultimately, gaining the tools to ask questions I never realized I was allowed to ask, and having agency over my own thoughts is now something I can't imagine losing. And besides, being wrong once or twice isn't that bad when you've already been wrong your whole life. Thanks for listening to me talk and stuff.